Hey guys, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
I'm Chris Totten. So do you guys ever do like really embarrassing shit? I don't mean like the I feel silly and I just want to hide my face. I mean that mortified, terrified, I want to climb in a hole and disappear kind of embarrassment. Well, I'm 45 years old and I've had moments like that my entire life. Like when I was in first grade, a little girl asked me if I'd help her do handstands. Well, she was wearing a long skirt, and me being a gentleman, I bunched her skirt up around her legs and I lifted them up in the air and helped her do handstands. Well, I wasn't paying attention and she slipped and fell, and I was still standing there holding her skirt. She's laying on the ground crying, wearing nothing but a blouse and her panties. Yeah, I got a hack for that one. Then when I was in junior high, our school used to bus us to the neighboring town to do swim lessons. And there was a sign in the boys' locker room that said no swimming in your underwear. Well, me being an idiot, I thought that meant that I couldn't wear underwear underneath my brightly colored Bermuda shorts. You guys remember those? So I go out and I get in the pool. Now I had a huge crush on one of the girls in my class, and she come out of the girls' locker room and she's wearing a bikini. Fucking boner. But luckily I was in the swim pool so no one could notice anyways. However, our first exercise was to do backfloats across the swim pool. I was fucking mortified. I knew that I looked like a Bermuda sailboat just floating across that pool. Well, years later, after I had moved away from town, her and I reconnected and we became friends, and I was telling her about that whole thing, and she said, "Really? I didn't even notice." Yeah, that'll make you feel good about yourself. Now, I've always been a bigger guy, and I'm blessed with a rather large case of plumber's crack. And when I was in high school, I fell asleep in class. I kept waking up feeling like somebody was fucking with the crack of my ass. And I would look behind, and the kid sitting behind me would be, reading his textbook or talking to a friend or whatever, so I'd just go back to sleep. Well, at the end of the day, I go home, and I go to sit on the toilet, and I hear tink, 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 tink. I'm like, what the fuck was that? And I stand up to find half a dozen shiny pennies in the toilet. That's right, that motherfucker used my ass as a piggy bank. And that one was good. There was several years ago, I had met this woman and we really hit it off. And we go back to her hotel room and things, got pretty steamy. So we end up having sex. She's on top. Literally like 30 seconds in, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm gonna come. So I just lock up. I make this weird grimace face. I start thinking about algebra and football stats, anything to try to make this shit last longer. Didn't work. I let out this weird groan and I finish. She looks down at me with obvious concern in her eyes and said, "Are you okay?" Embarrassed, I was, yeah, I'm fine. And she says, "Oh good, I thought I gave you a heart attack." Yeah, my ego suffered on that one. So for those that don't know me, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've got about 3.5 years of sobriety. Thank you very much. So before I hit my bottom and I really got serious about my recovery, I used to bounce in and out of sobriety I did that for a couple years. I'd get sober for a couple months and then I'd always relapse. Well, during one of my periods of sobriety, I met a girl in a meeting and we became pretty good friends. Well, we just so happened to relapse at the same time. And she sent me a text message and she wanted to come over. Well, I was already a few beers in, so sure, why not? So she comes over, we start drinking, we keep drinking, we get really, really drunk. And well, one thing led to another. And the next morning, I had to go to work, so I take her home. I go to work. A few hours later, she starts blowing up my phone, calling me a monster and saying that I'm abusive and all this stuff. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, come to find out, in my drunken passion, I had left hickeys and bruises and bite marks all over her body. And she told me that she even had to cancel a job interview because of the hickeys on the side of her neck. So I didn't talk to her again for like 4 months. And a buddy of mine and his wife had come to town to go to a meeting with me, and then they were going to a sobriety event out in Ocean Shores. And so we go to the club to go to a meeting, and guess who's there? Yeah, her. Fuck my life. Yeah. So during the meeting, my buddy says that he's going out there to Ocean Shores if anybody needs a ride. Well, guess who comes up to him and says she needs a ride? Yep, her. So he says, well, we're going to go over and eat at Subway. You're welcome to come along and go out to Ocean Shores after. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, this just keeps getting worse. So she goes with us. Luckily, when we get to Subway, she says she has to do some shopping over at Walmart. So she takes off. So it's my buddy and his wife and me on the other side of the table, and we're sitting there eating. And I look up, and to my horror, here she comes walking through the door. I'm like, oh, Jesus, here we go. So she walks up to the table, and my buddy, not knowing any history between us, not knowing that we even knew each other, says, well, you can sit by Chris. He doesn't bite. Yeah, I had a mouthful of sandwich and nearly choked to death. Her and I just looked at each other with red face like, I spent the next half an hour just looking out the window, trying my best not to laugh. That one was pretty good. He and I still laugh about that one. Hell, even just today, I had Taco Bell for lunch, and I had really, really bad bubble guts. And so on the way home from work, I stopped at a convenience store to use the bathroom, and unfortunately, all they had was just one of those single-person bathrooms. So I go in, I'm doing my thing. I murdered that toilet. I mean, it smelled like a wildebeest had died in that goddamn room like a month ago. It was horrible. I'm doing my thing. There's a knock on the door. I said, I'll be right out. And a couple of minutes later, there's another knock. And I'm kind of getting a little irritated. I said, I'll be right out. So I finish up. Well, I go to flush. I had wiped my ass so many times, I couldn't flush the toilet. It started overflowing. I'm like, oh, Jesus, I feel bad for the next person waiting for this bathroom. They might want to go to a different store. So I go to leave. I don't even wash my hands. I'm just pissed off at this point. I rip open the door. There is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen in my entire life standing there very impatiently waiting to use the bathroom. The smell that hit that poor woman in the face brought immediate tears to her eyes. But I don't think I've moved that fast in a very long time to get the fuck out of that place. Thanks, guys. That's my time.